Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here again on another episode of Beyond Connections, where investors can ask their questions about anything under the stock market. So here with me today are my analysts, and I myself am also a part of Abacus, this investment analyst, and uh,
I'm,
yes,
I'm Isaiah, one of the technical analysts for Abacus, and this is Bess.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me well?
Yeah,
I'm
we can hear
Elizabeth,
you.
or Bess, from one of the analysts for Abacus Securities. And yeah, I'm excited for today's session. Rainier and Icy, long time no see.
so good afternoon, everyone. We apologize for the delay. We did encounter some technical difficulties, but here we are, and I guess we can start things off with the questions that we have right now. And I think we have been seeing questions. We can flash them already, just uh, to be efficient with time. So for first question, we do have one of our usual viewers, Mr. Elvido Cruz. What are your thoughts on telecom industry? Uh, like Converge, PLDT and Globe currently up with Converge. Congrats. Is it time to sell? And at what price would be best to buy Tel and Globe?
Um, Let me start with that. No, so we're actually quite positive on what it looks like for the whole sector. For Tel, we are quite positive on Tel since it's quite undervalued, and also since it is seeing some benefits from the profitability of Maya, which just achieved profitability in the fourth quarter of last year, and we expect this to continue for 2025. So um, we're also positive on Globe with the upcoming IPO of Mint. Hopefully by the latter half of this year, we will see that IPO come to fruition. So this should increase the valuation for Globe as well as one of the shareholders of Mint. And for Converge, which recently just uh, reported earnings, which were quite positive as well. So we are now positive on conversion. Previously, we were hesitant on the quality of its earnings since there were a lot of below the line items. But it seems like was um, fourth quarter was more coming from the core business. And I think there was recent news for Converge that they are planning on, or they are considering at least spinning off their fiber, uh, or the company that handles the fiber infrastructure. So if that happens, that's also quite positive for the valuation of Converge. So I don't know if Rainer might have anything to add, and maybe technical viewpoint from IC.
Yeah. So just to add on as mentioned, again on Tel, currently its yield continues to be attractive. We think it is trading at about 7.4% annual yield. So that is one of the higher ones, especially given the current market. And they did just pay out, or we did just see its ex date happened last week. But in terms of its annualized yield, it continues to be attractive. That's why we do expect it to continue to improve as well in terms of its share price, especially when once rate cuts continue or rate cuts will again happen later or uh, next month and later this year. So I think we can share some
Yeah,
charts.
the charts. On the technicals for Converge, it had a few whipsaws here after this break of the triangle. It got a whipsaw there back in, what's this? Back in January, late January. This recent break after the consolidation, it will probably only get overbought at about 21 pesos and 20 cents. The oscillator on the lower end probably shows that the momentum is finally shifting. We have a better outlook here for obviously for the converge. So yeah, that's for converge. I mean, others.
Maybe take
Oh,
a
yeah.
look since it is one of
Oh,
the names that move the past 2 days, given the news on the Gcash's IPO.
medyo still loading. So, let me try again. Dito. Medyo mabagal lang. Sorry guys. Medyo a bit slow yung internet. So far.
We
Did
apologize,
you just
everyone.
discuss this? No?
We apologize, everyone,
Medyo
for the technical difficulties. Quite
not sure what I.
quite timely that we are discussing the network providers.
Yeah.
So bigger picture, this is showing probably possibly a larger reversal. In the near term, there's more of a consolidation here, so chartists will probably want to keep an eye on this. Um, anyway, there was news. There was news yesterday about on this the other day? Was it going to go push through the Gcash?
Yes, they are looking to push the Mint IPO, but with a lower public float than, uh, than I think they are going to make an exception for the Mint IPO. So it's uh, to something to watch out for over the next few months. Since I think they're targeting either late Q3 or about Q4 for its IPO. Okay, I hope that answers the question, LB. I think we can take the next question. I think I did see a question earlier on uh, from Igay Teams. How do you think the Fed pause will affect our market?
Um, Let me take that now. So, um, I don't think it will affect the BSP's decision for their own policy rates in that there's one less impetus for them to continue with easing. But I think the BSP will consider more the domestic factors such as our lower than expected inflation rate, and if we are correct in our expectation that GDP for this first quarter or even up to first half would disappoint, I think that would also be a bigger factor for the BSP in their own policy making rather than trying to keep up or keep pace with the Fed. As for our market, hopefully, if we are correct that this will not be taken that much into account by the BSP, and they do continue with rate cutting, this should be positive for market sentiment, although um, probably uh, uh, a little only a temporary uplift to sentiment without any other positive developments such as GDP growth for the first quarter. Uh, we have to remember that the impact of the rate cuts from the VSP takes quite a long time to actually have some palpable effect on the economy. There were BSP studies before that this takes about 12 months before we can actually see the impact on our economy. But um, on sentiment, that is quite immediate. So I hope that answered the question, Igay.
Thank you, Bess, for the insights. And I think we are looking at the next meeting. I think the market, not only here in the Philippines, but also the US, is banking on a cut maybe on April. So next, I think we have a question again from LB. So yes, nice to be back. Welcome back, LB, so thoughts on the energy sector as well. So I think we listed the names there: SPNEC, SGP, and AP. Well, for the current trend on the energy sector, I think we have been seeing lower Western prices so far this year after the El Nino effect that really pushed up some of the uh, energy prices last year. So we would be seeing a higher base if you compare it last year so versus this year. So uh, you should see some tapering off in terms of profitability and even top line for some of the companies that are heavily reliant on Western prices, so namely SEC and even AP. So we can touch on that on AP. Although on AP recently they did disclose Project Chromite that they are acquiring a significant stake on that, so that would help boost earnings probably later this year. Um, then next for SPNEC, we did see another development as well for SPNEC. Just this week, there were rumors, or even last week, or late last week pala, SPNEC, there were rumors that green, the renewable energy unit of Meralco's engine, would be would either be injected into SPNEC or MGreen would have its own IPO. So really, it's in the early stages, but I think SPNEC also is banking on its Terra Solar project that is expected to come online by Feb 2026, so about 11 months from now. And the expectation there is it would be a significant driver since I think that's about 2,000 megawatts of renewable energy coming online that would be significant to SPNEC's earnings. The next, SGP, we haven't heard about SGP since uh, it got the Maharlika investment. Although for SGP, what's disappointing in the past quarters or even year has been its yield, which has been not even close to where it was in the previous years, and we are facing some risk in terms of the tariffs and the rate rebasing for SGP. That's why we do prefer the other energy names apart from SGP. Okay, I think we can, or I see, do you have any interesting chart among the three names that you would want
Did
to
you
share?
discuss taping about?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. Of the charts, it's probably AP because it's trading near it's been had an uptrend for a while. Started about 36 pesos 90. Recently pulled back to near support, so it could possibly continue this trend channel. Yeah, to the support, possibly test the upper end at maybe 44 pesos. So that's for AP.
So just for everyone's information, in case you're wondering why there was a steep drop in AP today, it went X. So that's why there was a gap down. So I think the chart shows that it is still within the range. So thank you, IC. I think you can take the next question. Ken from Igaitan Times. What is your outlook on JGS? Do you expect reversal soon? Reversal in terms of its earnings. First on its earnings, it is disclosing its full year results next week, late next week, and I think we are going to see the same trend that we saw in the 9 month period. Since a lot of its subsidiaries have been experiencing some headwinds from higher costs and with the likes of SEB, URC, and even RLC. But the biggest drag so far for JGS, that's why it's probably dragging down its share price over the past months, would be its petrochem business that has been losing money. And recent news is in Q1 that they are shutting down some of their plants in the petrochem business in order to preserve cash. and even minimize their losses. So really, it would take some time before the petrochem business would come back, or if ever it would come back. So in terms of reversal, think it might not happen in the near term for JGS in terms of its earnings, but for its share price, we do acknowledge that some of the overhang is now has now been removed, or they've been passed through some of the overhangs, such as the MSCI deletion. It was deleted in the MSCI Standard Index a few weeks back, and that's why probably JGS has been consolidating at current prices, and it is trading at historically low levels in terms of its price to earnings, and the expectation for JGS is, I think, more of it would stabilize in the near term, and probably await for more visibility in terms of its earnings, especially in Q1 and Q2 of this year, and what happens to its petrochem. Maybe we can check the technicals for JGS, since I think technicals
On the
has been
JS,
more driven by sentiment in the previous months.
so for JGS, there is well, a bullish falling wedge. So it broke down here, volume spike here. So these are the signs of possibly a bottom here and an oversold condition in the oscillator. So some elements are in for potential reversal for on JGS on the technical. So yeah, that's for JGS.
Okay, thank you, IC. And you have some questions. Thoughts on LTG? I think we can share both the technicals and fundamentals. For LTG, they did announce earnings over the past week, and some of the key drivers remain to be its banking unit and the tobacco business. Although the more exciting part has been the banking, since the tobacco business has been declining so far with lower volumes, and even uh, lower volumes, but the excise tax has been pushing its selling prices upwards. That's in turn pulling down some of the demand. And thanks, we are going to see some developments on the tobacco business, since the carrying value has now been depleted. So we might see some one-time gains or even charges in the following months. And basically, it would be uh, an accounting shift, or an accounting charge for LTG on what it will do for its tobacco business. But since it has been one of the key contributors, and it has been earnings from that has been declining, and it's expected to continue to decline over the next few years, it might affect its payout, but it might be able to sustain its current payout in the next 2 years, maybe, because PNB has also started to pay out its dividends, and maybe Bess can share more about PNB's dividends.
Yes, so PNB recently declared dividends or paid out. I think the exit is already done. Um, Dividends for its shareholders, and this will greatly benefit LTG. And also PNB has mentioned that they are planning on or they are looking to consider having a more regular dividend policy, but we'll have to wait and see just how much, if this will this will be done in for more than once a year, or if um, the next dividend will be for 2026 na. And also we will have to see pa if the the yield will be attractive for investors since when they first announced the yield is actually among the highest among the banks, but since the price has already shot up in response to the news of the dividend for PNB, the yield now is a little in the middle of the road for dividend paying stocks. But for LTG, this is quite positive since they'll be receiving that dividend. And if PNB is able to pay out dividends more regularly in the next 2 years, that will LTG will be benefiting from that regularly as well. But as Rainier mentioned, the high dividend yield of LPG over the past 3 years has mostly been from the income from the tobacco segment, which we expect to start to um, uh, trend lower in the next 2 years since the smoking incidence is actually going down in for the younger generation. So we have yet to see um, if LTG would or Philip Morris would be able to buck that trend or at least find ways to mitigate that trend among the or the at least be able to maintain the use of cigarettes for for the next 2 years. We are seeing some positive developments in terms of having the government crack down on smuggling, which is um, cutting down on their market share. I think so. If that continues to be implemented well by the government, this should also be positive for LTG, right, Rainer?
Yes, correct. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that, Bess.
Okay.
And maybe you can show the chart for
Mhm.
LTG.
So for LTG, we recently broke out of this reverse head and shoulder. I'll show you the right shoulder. There, there. Um, it's currently overbought. So if you're on the trade or in the stock, holding stock, if it breaks below 11 pesos and 26 cents, it would probably mark the end of this recent run. So keep an eye on that level.
Okay, thank you for that, IC. And unfortunately, with the time, I think we can take our last question for today. And this is something that is going to happen in the next few weeks, and probably something to watch out for as well on how the market reacts, which is on the possibility of a rate cut happening. Sorry, can we scroll up? I think this is one key question that would potentially impact the market. So, what is the possibility of the BSP rate cuts on April 10? And is it the best time to accumulate for property sector like SPH, Ali, and RLC? Which do you think has the highest or I think that's a little different. Maybe you can take that.
Yeah, so we are expecting the BSP to continue with the rate cuts this coming April 10. We actually were quite surprised that they paused in the last BSP meeting, and we think that was not on the wise side. But considering that the inflation rate for February was lower than expected, actually, it was probably better timing if they had cut in the previous meeting. But since we are expecting 50 basis points cut this year, and possibly 75, hopefully, this would be positive for property companies like those that are enumerated in the question. However, if you would like to accumulate some of these, you would prefer association alley rather than RLC. I think RLC is still going to have uh, concern or our investors will still have negative sentiment on the RLC since they did a lot of sales cancellations last year. The confidence is eroded for that, and it will take some time for RLC to recover. But still, and I think S&P and Ali are both quite undervalued. So um, So yun. I'm not sure what the RR means here. Maybe Rainer has an idea.
Oh, I thought it was the reserve ratio, so I'm not sure if LV is referring to that. But it is being cut, right?
The BSP recently cut the reserve requirement ratio, but that's for banks, not for property companies. I think he might be referring to something else. I'm just not sure what he means. He or she means. But speaking of banks, the rate cuts will actually be short-term positive for banks since this will reduce their interest rates or interest expenses. But since this also would reduce the market rates, we are expect if the BSP starts to ease again, we are expecting the NIM compression or their margins, net interest margin or NIM, to start to come down more or in a bigger way later this year with lower rates. We started to see some of that NIM compression last year um, with with the previous rate cuts by the BSP. Um, but it kind of stalled in the second half of 2024. So we are now seeing NIMs more of flattish, and as if the rate cuts are delayed further, that would mean that NIM compression will also be delayed and would be positive or at least not negative for banks. So quite curious what the RR here means. So maybe we can get in touch with you with that offline LB.
Thank you for that, Des. And I think that's all the time left we have for today. And we would like to thank the viewers for joining us today in this session of Beyond Connections. And it has been a fruitful session. Uh, we appreciate all your questions and think it's going to be another eventful next 2 weeks with a few more companies that are set to announce the results and possibly more inflation numbers before we see you guys again. So, any parting words, guys?
Well, I just want to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. And a sort of
Yes, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we hope to see you next in the next edition of Beyond Connections. Happy rest of the week, guys.
Thank you. Bye.